Yo, what is up, YouTube? As you tell by the thumbnail, I finally got a lift pump for the LB7. Sorry for the lack of videos. I've just been extremely busy and just trying to get back into working on the truck again. And the next thing on the list was to do a lift pump. So here we are. This won't be a full step-by-step video on how to do the install, but it'll just be a brief overview, showing you steps along the way on how I'm going to run my setup. And right now I'll just go over everything that I purchased because I ordered some additional stuff that doesn't come in the kit because I'm going to run it a little bit different. So I'll give you some pointers on how I'm going to do mine, and basically just kind of talk real quick on why I choose AirDog over Fast. So there's three things. A couple of them aren't major, but the first one is just that, these AirDog, they give you black hose as they should, where Fast is still giving out like a baby blue fuel hose, which to me just looks kind of tacky. I mean, I don't think I would ever run any type of blue hoses on a vehicle. That just does not look good. It should be black. So that's one thing. I mean, so maybe some guys might not mind it, but to me it just does not look good. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which is it's kind of major to me, is Fast. They give you brass fittings with their kits. Not going to say that brass doesn't work, but to me brass belongs on house plumbing and stuff like that. I mean, usually you never use brass for automotive related stuff. I mean, you can, but to me it just doesn't look right. Where AirDog, they got with modern times, and they have some more nicer quality stuff that they give you with the kit. So like this quick disconnect, obviously this side has the O-ring that threads into the pump, and then here's the disconnect fitting that goes on this side, which is pretty nice. This is more stuff that you would see on OEM connectors under the hood on more modern vehicles. So which is really nice. So if you ever have to take the pump off, or you're doing some type of maintenance or whatever, it's nice just having a quick disconnect, and you can pinch off the line or whatever. So this is the major reason why I choose AirDog, and to me this is really nice. And these are really nice because they have an O-ring on the inside, generally don't ever leak, so just really good quality stuff like that. And then the third thing is just really preference. I like how AirDog gives you the option to mount the pump on the inside or the outside of the frame, where Fast it's only on the outside. I mean, I know a lot of guys do like the pump on the outside, but me, maybe I'm just showing my age. I like stuff shown or be hidden on the inside of the frame and look really clean. So other than that, that's the three things, or the three reasons why I choose AirDog. But the next thing I'm going to go over, and this is the same for Fast or AirDog, and don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure Fast supplies these pickup tubes. So to install this, you're supposed to drop the fuel tank, and you're supposed to cut this to the length and cut it a certain way. But I've heard a lot of bad things about these things, about sucking air when the tank gets low and stuff like that. So I advise just to stay away from these and not install these. Instead, go with the fuel sump. So I went with XDP. I know Beans Diesel makes a really nice one too, and there's some off-brand ones, but I'd rather just go with the well-known name because I don't want it to leak or anything like that. So obviously, like, I'm not doing that pickup tube. So instead, with the sump, back to brass fittings. XDP does give you brass fittings that's a 1/2-inch MPT to a 1/2-inch barb. I won't be using those. Instead, I'm going to go with AN fittings. So these here, this is a 1/2-inch MPT to a -8. If you're not familiar with AN fittings, a -8 just is basically a 1/2-inch. So obviously we'll have two of those go in there and there. And the nice thing with these, on these barb ends, you don't have to use hose clamps because these things are extremely hard to get over. And once you put the hose over and they seat, they'll never come off. Like, if you have to take the hose off, you have to cut the hose. So that's one nice thing, is you don't have to use any hose clamps on the hose, so it'll look extremely clean. And but these aren't, if you're not real familiar with AN fittings, I mean, you guys that are, they're expensive. So I got these off Amazon. These were about $50, and I got these hose little holders, so the two lines coming off the sump, these will keep the two hoses together, just kind of keep everything clean. So I don't know if I'll need both of them, but I got an extra one just in case. And then the next big thing is, so the original fuel line that comes from the top of the tank that goes to basically that feeds the engine through the hard line, you obviously won't be using the hose on top of the tank anymore. So instead of dropping the tank down and taking that line off and plugging it there, you can purchase this billet plug, which I got off Amazon too. This was kind of pricey, it was like $25, but it's worth it. So you can just plug that hose up instead. There's the part number, you can go ahead and pause it if you need it. But like I said, got that off Amazon as well. They'll plug up that hose there, so that you don't have to worry about it, because if you don't plug it and you fill up your tank all the ways, it'll slosh around, you'll get some fuel seeping through, so it'll spill on the side of on the tank. So you got to plug that up. And then the next thing is nice on these sumps that have the return belts in, and the reason why I like this XTP one, I know there's another company that kind of does it the same way as well, is they have this return tube that threads in right here on the return. So that way, as from the return coming from the pump, that fuel will be kind of aerated, so there'll be a lot of air in the fuel coming back from the return. So from the return line, it's going to push that air to the top of the tank. You won't get it right next to the feed. So that's why they do that, because if they had the return right next to the feed, a lot of that aerated fuel will be going back into the pump. So it just helps separate it, all the fuel, basically contaminated fuel or that's not being used, it goes back to the top of the tank and let the air bubbles settle up top. So that's why they do that. And overall, this is just really nice. It's not cheap, it's $200, but I think it just overall make a cleaner install, and it's not, instead of using that pickup tube. So like I said, off of XTP website, Beans Diesel makes a really nice one as well too. So whichever price you can get them. You can sometimes get this on sale when XTP is running like a holiday sale on Memorial Day or whatever. You might be able to snag this for 10 or 15% off. So, but overall, it's a nice kit. I mean, obviously I'll be using the bolts, and then they have these O-ring style washers to help it from leaking. I have the same sump on my LML. If you can check out my LML video, I ran the same sump I had the truck for 3 years and it never leaked. So I knew I was going to go with the same one. So that's pretty much it as far as everything I purchased extra to do the install. So the next thing will be getting this thing up on the truck. So let's get to going and getting that installed. All right, so I got everything all pretty much done underneath the truck and mounted up and ran the lines and everything. Everything came out pretty clean. So like I said earlier, this is not a full step-by-step video, but just kind of an overview of how I did my setup. And if you're wondering why I didn't put it further back, it's because I plan on running the HSP traction bars. And I saw another video, a guy went to install his traction bars and the lift pump was in the way. He had his on the outside, but it doesn't matter because he'll still run into it. You have to drill four holes, because the bolt's here and then the 2 here. So I said, well, I might as well put it forward where it's going to be. So that way, when I do drill my holes for the traction bars, I don't have to worry about messing with this anymore. So did all that and then ran the lines, did that clean. Like I said, this one's coming from the sump, so that's the feed in, and then this one here is to the engine, and then that's your return, so it goes back to the sump. So I'll show you guys how I ran the lines. So it's really nice on these older trucks because they're C-frame, so you can actually run it inside the frame here. So I actually didn't even need those little billet pieces that I bought. So I just ran the 2 lines through there. They ran nice cleanly through here, and the feed one ran right here nice and clean. And then boom, return, and then I did the 90 right there. So that looks pretty clean. But the biggest pointer I'm gonna say is you got to be very careful when you go to put your sump, because you need a nice flat spot. Because of this here, it's not a good idea. I mean, I guess you could put it right here, but it'd be very close. But ideally, you want to put it in the center of the tank, but you have to keep in mind of your sending unit. So basically, if you do it in the same spot that I did, you'll be okay. So I'll give you a good idea from that strap. So obviously, when you do your pilot hole, it's basically dead center of that. And I didn't rush in the morning, and first thing I did was just drill my pilot hole. And I had my tank about around 1/8 of a tank, and I just let it drain into a 5-gallon Home Depot bucket. That's actually best bet. And I didn't jack the truck up or anything. And my truck's leveled, so if your truck's lifted, it'd be even easier. This is just literally a level truck. So the back or the rear is stock, as you can tell. There's no blocks or anything. But so yeah, just let it drain. It's gonna take a while. It might take a half hour to an hour, depending on how much fuel you have. Just keep an eye on your bucket and make sure it doesn't overfill. And once you drill the pilot hole, there shouldn't be any plastic, and you can reuse that fuel. And even if a little bit of plastic does go in there, just get yourself like a little funnel filter, and you can probably snake that little piece of plastic in and reuse the fuel. There's nothing wrong with it. So I did that, just let it drain out. And then once it was empty, then the fun part, which it sucks, is drilling the actual 3-inch hole. So even with the tank empty, it slings fuel everywhere. It's not fun. But just make sure you get a nice clean cut straight up, and like I said, just make sure you're just forward, of the sending unit, because if you go dead center, you're going to create a big issue, and you're going to run into your sending unit, and you won't be able to install the sump, and you'll have to actually get a new fuel tank. You'll make this a nightmare. So do not do that. So to go ahead and just put it exactly where I put it, I think that's the best location. I guess you could put it here if you think you have the room. I'd rather it be more towards the rear, but that's where I did it. And then like I said, there's a 1/2 inch APT to -8 lines snapped in pretty clean. When you go to put these fittings on, a little tip, I just get a little bit, and I mean just a little bit of engine oil, just smear it on the fittings, and even on the plastic ones. I mean, just very, very little, and it'll make your life so much easier putting these hoses on. Because once they seat in, these hoses will never come off. And it's not high pressure. That's the thing too. I mean, if you're dealing with high pressure lines, then yeah, you probably want to put a hose clamp. But with this, it's not high pressure. I mean, especially the sump, it's not going to see. I mean, the return, because it's coming from the motor, you might see maybe a few psi, but nothing crazy. So once you run that, that's pretty much it. Like I said, snaked it through there, and then this one goes to the factory hard line through there. You can see. Let me go through the front here. So you can see that plug that I mentioned earlier. So that was the fracturing line that snapped into the hard line. So that one, you just plug that, so that way when you do fill up your tank, you don't have to worry about fuel seeping out of there and making a mess and leaking. So got that thing, just snaps in real easy. Some people like to drop this fuel cooler in order to disconnect the line. It is a little tight in there, but I was able to get in there with the, I believe it was a 5/16 or no, a 1/2 inch fuel line, no, a 1/2 inch fuel line disconnect tool. Just snaked it in there and popped it out, and then obviously snapped in the new quick connect fitting from this one, and then just ran it there. And like I said, this was pretty easy. The only thing under the truck that's just a pain is just the sump. Once you get that darn sump drilled out, the 3-inch with the 3-inch hole saw, and get the sump installed, it's pretty smooth sailing after that. So like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you guys. But yeah, so this is my setup on my LB7 Duramax, and this down here would probably be the same all the way to a LMM, so a 2010. So 01 to 2010 Duramax does share the same frame if you're not real familiar with GM trucks, because in 2011 GM, and it has, when they came out with the LML, they totally redesigned the chassis, so it has a fully boxed frame. They beefed up a bunch of stuff in 2011. So just so you know, so this should be the same from 01 to 10 on GM 3500 trucks, you know, whether you have a dually or a 2500 and a long bed. The difference, I think, on a long bed though, you will have more room from this cross member of the torsion bar cross member to the cross member here. So yeah, if you have a long bed, I think you'll have a much more space here. So obviously mine's a short bed, so that's pretty much it though. Like I said, yeah, if you guys any questions, just drop them down and let me know. I'll feel free to help you guys out. So thanks for watching, and peace out.